given what you've been through, it would be completely justified for you to feel that you want to withhold forgiveness. For a time, definitely be bitter.
But I didn't expect my husband to just not show up on Christmas Day in 2018. I never saw that coming.
A lot of people don't talk a lot about the breakdown of a relationship, and it's a hard subject, I think, especially as women, to talk about openly.
Oh, you have to move on. You can't sit and continue to ask yourself why, what happened, because you turn yourself inside out, replaying the trauma. It's not great. I don't think there's anyone who could identify with trauma more than Jesus. Who knows every emotion, every tear, every heartbreak.
Welcome to the Magnify Conversations. My name's Ruth, and I'm the founder and CEO of Magnify.
And my name's Rachel, and I'm one of the hosts of this show.
Magnify is a global community and content platform focused on equipping women like you to grow in and impact your sphere of influence. We truly want to see you thrive in all areas of life and want to display what faith can look like at the center of that too.
We started the conversations because we wanted to have real discussions about the things that matter. Money, relationships, and work, all through the lens of faith and our relationship with God.
Ultimately, we know as multifaceted women, things are rarely one size fits all. So we speak with many different women who are from our community and hear their stories. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Magnify Conversations.
We feel so privileged to have Ashley in the Magnify Studio today to talk about getting back up after the breakdown of a marriage.
Ashley is an actress, author of A Day Away with God, and creative professional, working on a range of projects, including plays, festivals, and workshops for those in recovery.
This episode really refreshed us, reminding us how important it is not to fixate on past relationships and how letting go of bitterness in situations we lack control of can liberate us to move forwards.
Let's get into this conversation. I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you, Ashley, today. And I know we're both excited about this conversation, just about how we can choose to be better and not bitter after a marriage breakdown or relationships breakdown, because they do. That's the reality of life. And before we get into that conversation, we'd just love to do some icebreakers with you. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Rachel, make sure you join in on this one.
I will.
I've got a good one. So if you could swap lives with any character from a novel or script, modern or historic, who would you choose?
I feel like you definitely have an answer for this.
I do. Immediately, as soon as you started to read that question, I was there. I was ready. I think because professionally, I've played a lot of different characters, so I'm used to reading and watching lots of different things. The first one that comes to mind is Pippi Longstocking.
That's a good one.
And she's the one who has the strength of a horse, who doesn't like obnoxious adults who know it all. She's feisty and fierce, and she won't take any nonsense. And she also goes down the river in a barrel because it was a Tuesday or something. She's so spontaneous. So that would be me.
What about you, Rach?
Okay, this is really hard because I am just thinking about it now. But do you know who the first person that came to my head? But I'll have to give you the context because you'll be like, yeah, but she dies. Juliet Capulet, but in Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. And the reason is, I love that film anyway. When she wears the white wings and the white dress, I feel like I want to dress up as her at some point. I just love her character in that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Maybe if you gave me more time, I'd think about it. But she was the person that came to my head. I know she dies, but...
So I've got another one. That was a good one. If you had to choose between never being able to read a book ever again, oh, praise the Lord, or not being able to ever watch theatre or film, what would you choose? It's hard. Theatre or film? So you can't watch a show, right?
Yeah,
or
you can't watch a show or a film. Or Netflix or anything.
Or never read a book.
Oof, that's really tough because we're talking the Bible.
Yeah, any book.
This has stumped me.
Yeah.
I can act out the Bible. I'm not reading a book. I can act it out. Give me
So
a
you would ditch
stone.
the book?
Yeah, I can act it out.
Or
Yeah.
you could sing it out.
I could sing it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. By book.
I'm
Nobody.
vetoing that one.
You're
I don't know.
vetoing, Ashley?
No, I would go with you. I'd go with no books. Let's go to the theatre, the cinema.
Yes.
Let's not take that away from society.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get into this topic a bit more. I think, you know, a lot of people don't talk a lot about the breakdown of a relationship, and it's a hard subject, I think, especially as women, to talk about openly. And for me, I think it's important because it frees other people to be able to share, you know, some of their failings or, you know, how they've walked through things. For you, Ashley, why do you think it's important that we're having this conversation today?
Just what you said, Sinead, like if there was anyone sitting at home who has just had someone walk out on them or has just maybe been caught up in the middle of a trauma in their relationship or marriage, or found some new information out, or been ghosted, or whatever it is, I think it's so important to travel together on that journey and say, I've been there, it's okay, you will get through this. It's hard right now, it's painful, you just need to do what you need to do. I think this conversation is so important for people right now.
That's wonderful. I mean, can you tell us a bit about your story and your marriage and just, you know, the journey of that, and how, when the breakdown happened or what transpired? Yeah.
Yeah, I was married for 3.5 years and it was the fairy tale. It was the perfect get-together story. We worked in theatre together, and we met on a show. And I mean, his statement to me, we met at Christmas time, and he said to me, because I was playing the princess in a show, and he said, I want to be your prince. And it was that fairy tale, you know, moment of like, oh, this is the things that you think should happen, but, you know, in reality, or maybe it doesn't happen like that. But as it was happening and transpiring, it was just so wonderful at the time. I think for anybody working, you know, both people are working in the relationship, and sometimes your roles or your jobs take you away from the home for periods of time. That can be difficult to navigate. That can be difficult to stay connected, and yeah, just communicating with one another. But I didn't expect my husband to just not show up on Christmas Day in 2018. I never saw that coming. I saw the pulling back.
Yeah.
I saw the loss of communication and the loss of love. But I was determined, no matter what, to work through it. And when he checked out and went, I'm not here anymore, that was so devastating to me. That was such a shock. But for me, it was an answer to what I'd been praying for. I did say to the Lord, like, this doesn't feel right. You know, this is not a marriage.
Right.
And the answer was almost given to me because he left, and the door was then open for me to move on eventually.
There's so much to unpack there, because even for you to be praying on something wasn't right, and did that start off as a thought, or did you see a behaviour and you thought, I don't know, what does that look like, or what was it that you started to sense, you know, for yourself, just something isn't right here, or what was that like?
I think in any relationship, particularly a marriage, you know, you are together. You should be together, and I think that it's a little bit like running the 3-legged race. If you're pulling the other person along, then you're not running the race together. And I knew for quite a while that I was pulling him along in marriage. Wow. And, you know, that takes a lot of effort. That takes a lot of emotional investment. And when you're not getting anything back, you know, well, that was when I started praying. This doesn't feel right. We did have a conversation about that, and we both came to an agreement whereby actually we do need to put some work in, sought some therapy and some counselling. But again, it was that same thing of I put more investment in that than he did.
Yeah.
And when you track back, because it's sometimes hard on reflection to see, you know, people say, at what point did you sense that things weren't right? And you said that you clearly did notice that there was a loss of love. And would you say, just even through maybe your work and just other priorities, it's a question, had they unintentionally taken the first spot?
Right.
Like, because you're both obviously in theatre, like it's very busy, actually very busy jobs that are not just at home. It's you're not just coming home every night, travelling. There's real excitement about that too. But I think there's a real cost to pay with travel as well. Sometimes, would you say that was taking priority either for you or your husband at the time?
It definitely was for him. I was quite happy I knew in my head, I had my priorities sorted. I wanted the career first, then the marriage, then the family, which is quite a traditional stance to take, and I'm aware of that. But, you know, I was brought up by a mum who so loved me and was able to spend her time devoted to bringing up her, like me and my sister. And I felt that I wanted to do something similar. I would maybe take odd jobs here and there, but my investment was in my marriage. My husband at the time, that was not the case. And that's also quite a hard realisation as well. And sometimes you don't even know until you're in the marriage that the priorities are not the same. Now, things happen in life.
Yeah.
You got a project going on, or there's a family member unwell, and all your attention goes to that. And that's totally fine. That's perfectly acceptable, because any relationship should be give and take. It should be. That is what a marriage is for. I love the Bible verse, you know, about one helping the other up. If one falls down, the other one can help the other up. And I think that's what's wonderful about being in relationship. But there has to come a time when that does change. And it didn't.
I'm just so struck, I have to say this, by your level of clarity, right? And your honesty, because I talk to a lot of women, even myself, and a lot of people are delusional, okay, before they get into a relationship of themselves, they're just trying to hit a goal. I even think being raised as a Christian, marriage was a goal. Like, I'll be quite frank about it, that you get to this age, you hit that goal, and then you do this thing next. So I dated people that I knew weren't all the way legit, but I thought I can just get to that goal, you know, and it will be fine. And the thing would crash, okay, before we hit the aisle. But I was quite determined, I'll just take you down the aisle and I'll fix you afterwards, you know? Because delusion is fantastic sometimes, you know, just let me hit this goal. And I'm just so, you know, kind of blown away at your clarity of the situation, that I have these priorities, this person doesn't have these priorities. I don't think this is going to work. But then we also have that willingness sometimes as people that I can make it work. I can pray it through. I can counseling through. But that's one person, as you're saying, wanting to push through, right? So at what point did you, and I think this is a very personal thing, say, I'm going to walk away because I'm the only person? I mean, I don't know how that went down, but was it that?
Or was that choice taken away by view of the fact that you said your husband just didn't come home Christmas Day or walked out? It's like, was that removed before you could even step forwards?
Yeah, that was the turning point for me. And I think in any relationship, you do come to the end point. Christmas Day was awful, you know, sitting here with you both, like thinking back to what it was like on my own. And I remember, I think I phoned my mum 20 times during that day, because where I lived, we were about 250 miles away from each other. And my husband and I had said to our families, Christmas is so busy for us, we're always working, let us have Christmas Day together and we will see you in the new year. And everybody was very mindful and respectful of that, which was wonderful. I just didn't see me spending Christmas Day on my own, away from everyone. And I'm just going to paint a picture, you know, that it was all his Christmas presents were there, were wrapped. The Christmas dinner was ready and prepared. Like, I was the wife that did. I still do love that. I love hosting. I love looking after people and making people feel special. Christmas is such a special time of the year. And it is for me because my birthday's 4 days before Christmas. So I'm like uber Christmas. But yeah, just to share about the reality of that moment, of that isolation, separation, and realizing that one human being thought that they could take, you know, the decision away from another of, like, you know, of the marriage, of the relationship. He made that decision for me. I didn't make that decision. I still at that point thought, before Christmas Day, I thought there was hope.
Yeah.
When that happened and I saw how alone I was in that moment, I saw how alone I was in the marriage.
Yeah.
I didn't see it up until that point. I didn't see that I was fighting this alone. But in that moment, I went, oh yeah, it's just me in this. He's not here. He's not present. He will not be present. So he made the decision for me, but I also vowed, rightly or wrongly, that I would never spend another Christmas Day alone. It's okay if that's your choice and that's what you want to do, absolutely, but make it your choice. Don't let anybody else make that decision for you. Don't let anybody else make you feel so isolated in a relationship, because you deserve so much better. I've got so much family backing, family coming out the woodwork, friends around me, wonderful experiences that I've had. Anyone at any point in time, if I had picked up the phone, could have got to me. But I realised that was a battle I had to go through myself. But I was surrounded by such wonderful, loving friends and family that would never have treated me. They would never have put me in that position. But the one I was married to did.
Yeah.
So in answer to your question, he took it away, the decision. And the door was then left open for me to go, yeah, that's it.
Incredibly difficult as well, because you were saying really that your marriage was in a difficult place. Like, you talked about having therapy and counselling. You both acknowledged things weren't where you wanted them to be. Yeah. So I know, even just from my own experience of marriage, when you're both going through a difficult season, it takes a lot to put yourself and your emotions to one side. So, you know, you were just saying about there was a dinner prepared, there's gifts there. Even to do that, it just, in a normal situation, that's easy and that's what you do. But when things are difficult, it takes a lot to do kind things
I would have
sometimes.
wanted to finish that food. I was like, you need to finish this food.
Well, because it's it's just a real act of, like, no, my emotions say this is difficult, I'd rather avoid or whatever it is. But my reality is, I'm going to try, I'm going to fight. It's like you were saying, I'm going to put my best, fight for the marriage, put my best foot forward. And I think to not be met with that same, okay, I'm in it and I'm going to fight too, is, I mean, I can't imagine the isolation of that. And you were saying for you, that was a moment where you thought, I've just realised that I've been here on my own a long time, not just this day is huge. That's what just stands out to me from what you said is it takes so much when you're in a difficult place to be selfless. It's easy when things are going well to do kind things for one another, but I think that's just what struck me, that feeling of isolation and loneliness.
Yeah, and what your faith is doing at that time, because when people treat you bad and you're a good person, you're thinking, God, you know, like, I don't deserve this. No. You know, I can only imagine, and I would love to know what conversations you were having with God at the time, you know. What were you saying to him? Like, yeah, just what were you praying about? Or
Christmas Day was very interesting. After I had waited and waited and waited and didn't get a response as to where he was, I still to this day don't know what happened and where he was on that day. But
I would love to know myself. I want to respond.
You and the majority of my
people,
friends and family who are ready, you know. But you have to move on. You can't sit and continue to ask yourself why, what happened, you know, because you turn yourself inside out, you know, replaying the trauma. It's not great. But that evening when I eventually thought to myself, I have to take myself to bed because the following day, which was Boxing Day, I had a 3-show day.
Oh, wow.
Which is why I'm saying my friends and family were so wonderful. Like, my friends, my castmates who did the show with me, they knew something wasn't right. And the man that I was acting opposite, he was just wonderful. He used to take my hand every night, and I used to have to open the show by singing "I'm Walking on Sunshine."
Oh, wow.
I was not walking on sunshine. But the castmates were just so wonderful, just to hold my hand and say, "It's okay. We are here for you. We've got you. As soon as you come off that stage, we're right with you." And but Christmas Day evening, I took myself to bed and thought, how am I going to? I don't know what to do next. And praying and asking God, like, will you please just be here? And so whenever one of us, my husband and I, stayed away, when he was away, I used to sleep on his side of the bed. So I must have gone up the stairs earlier to turn on the bedside lamps. So I walked round my side of the bed and turned off my bedside lamp, walked back round. I'd already prayed, Lord, please help me. And there was a Post-it note on the floor that wasn't there when I walked round to turn off my lamp. And the Post-it note was, the Lord is my shepherd. And I thought, you are exactly what I need right now. There's nothing else. I don't need anything else. I just need my shepherd to get me through this, to take me to the next step. And it sounds cliche, but I knew he was with me in that moment. I knew God was there and that he would carry me through the next day and the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, you hinted at it, the questions that start to emerge naturally, right? You can't just go through something like that and not have questions. And you're a better woman than me, to be honest, because I have said to God, when I get to heaven, I want to see that tape of, you know, situations. I mean, I was in a relationship where I knew the person wasn't faithful, but I had no evidence of it. And I remember the day when the Holy Spirit said to me, you have to stop asking why. And I said, okay, I will. But when I get to heaven, roll the tape. Yeah, roll the tape. So as you're a better woman than me, because I would have been asking a lot of questions, because this is a marriage, you know, and you didn't just answer to a few people, you answered to God. You made those commitments, you made those vows. So when you're asking and you can sense it's getting into a level of resentment or a level of just negative emotions, how do you judge that well? Because anger is a legitimate emotion, but then how we manage it afterwards. Where was the point where you said, I'm not gonna keep asking questions anymore and I'm gonna start to move on? And how did you do that?
It's hard to think back and remember if there was a specific decision. I remember like walking in the snow and the rain and in the hills and crying my heart out and just pouring it all out to God and just saying, like, I'm just going to have to give you this because I can't keep it in. So I think eventually all of that hurt and pain and anguish did come out. And then like a page was turned and I started to write and I started to put thoughts down and I even wrote a play about, you know, a character going through something similar. And I mean, that was cheaper than therapy. So I suppose the Lord knows the process that you need for healing from that particular trauma. Might be walking in the snow, might be writing, might be going for coffee with a friend regularly, just not to go back over things, but just to check in. It might be just a little bit more self-care, having a bath, going to church, being surrounded by people who know you, who have known you out with that relationship, who know what you're truly like. I had a conversation with my sister recently, and she said to me, you were just so mistreated in that relationship. And I don't think I could see the full extent of that. I couldn't see what they could see outside of it. And of course, when you're married, you know, your family members won't step in and say like, you know, they won't overstep the line. You know, they will support you in what you're doing. Certainly mine did. It looks different for everybody. So I would say like whatever healing journey is coming out for you, go with that.
I know for you as well, just Ashley, in your story, you have been so passionate about not just becoming a bitter woman or a bitter ex-wife, but given what you've been through, it would be completely justified for you to feel that you want to withhold forgiveness. For a time, definitely be bitter, because clearly what you've been through is very, very painful. And although we know healing isn't linear and all of that, I'm sure, you know, there's residue for us and trauma and all of that. I know you, in your journey, have been really committed not to being bitter. So I'm really interested to know, just how has your relationship with Jesus informed the decision to forgive or to not be someone who lives with bitterness?
Yeah. I'm always struck by that Jesus asked his closest disciples in the Garden of Gethsemane, will you watch and pray with me 1 hour? One of them he asked to walk on water with him. One of them put his head on his shoulder at the Last Supper. They were as close as can be. And those friends did not stay and pray and watch 1 hour. And I think we talk about trauma a lot. We talk about it now, which is great. It's great to talk about it. But I don't think there's anyone who could identify with trauma more than Jesus, who knows every emotion, every tear, every heartbreak. And every time I did shed a tear, I knew that the Lord carried it. I knew that the Lord saw it. So I knew that having that as a something to look to, what Jesus had gone through certainly spoke to me. But not to be overtly Christian about it, Rachel, as well, is to say that actually I did have such a great support system. People picked me up, and they will, if you let them in, they will pick you up. Because it can be so easy to go, no one understands, no one was there that day, and they weren't. You know, they were not there, they did not see. And it can be so hard to say, actually, you can become bitter, you're right, and say, you know, the other people will do that to me. They'll do it too. Everybody's like this, and to tarnish everybody with the same brush. But actually, he was just one person in the way that he acted. Everybody else was totally different towards me. And I think the stark contrast reminded me that Jesus was reflected in everybody else, and that whatever he was going through at that time, I kind of made my peace with it. I think I was able to hold my hand up and say, actually, he must have been going through something. Something must have been going on for him. And if that's the case, then do you know what? That's okay. If he couldn't articulate it, okay. God bless him. I hope he can articulate it now, and I hope he's better off for the next person.
Just amazing, because it's hard, you know, to show that level of compassion and forgiveness. We're called to do it, but it's in the I know we all know so many people that have not been able to forgive, you know, and be able to just let go of some terrible things that maybe people have done to them. What would you say are some of the like, you know, like forgiving is are stages. So sometimes you think you've forgiven someone and then something comes up and you think, okay, I haven't actually let it go.
Yeah.
Did you go through that, or was there a moment where you realised, oh, I'm really starting to let this go. I'm really starting to forgive.
Yeah. I thought I had actually let all of it go until a few weeks ago, and something happened, and lots of things came back to my mind about what happened then, and the why question came back up. So you think you're healed, you think you've moved on, and then something happens, or actually there's certain, we're chatting about films and theatre and stuff, but actually sometimes if I'm watching a film and there's a similar scenario, like that sort of anxiety kind of comes back. And it's okay to recognise it, and I think it's okay to still be upset about it. It's okay to go, yeah, you're sensitive towards that area because it was such a traumatic thing. I've been through quite a few things, Sinead, like in my life. I've been through chronic fatigue syndrome for 6 years. Wow. I've been through spiritual abuse and manipulation. Wow. I've also been through divorce. If I had to live my life again, and God said to me, right, okay, you got quite a lot there. We'll take some of that out. What do you want rid of? I would go through spiritual abuse and manipulation. I would go through the illness for 6 years. I would ask the Lord, take that away from me. That whole relationship, divorce, the Christmas Day incident, take it away, because it probably is the most painful thing I've ever gone through.
Right.
But you're right, it is hard to forgive.
Yeah.
But we're not called to carry it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. My name's Rachel.
And my name's Sinead, and we'll be your hosts for these episodes as we're joined by incredible women from the Magnify community to chat through their lived journeys and experiences across money, relationships, and work, all from the perspective of their relationship with God.
We know so many of you already watch these conversations, so if you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, hit the button now. It really helps this important content to reach even more women around the world and ensures we keep bringing these conversations to you.
We hope you enjoy this episode. Let's get into it.
How did you embark on that journey of forgiveness? Because it's like you said, there's not a perfect, it's in stages, right? And then, but I think sometimes we discredit ourselves on how far we've come when you have a moment like you had the other week. You know, I've had moments in the past where I really thought I'd handled that, and then those questions come back, or the fear, or you're triggered by something, and you almost think, oh, I thought I'd forgiven and I haven't. I don't think it's as straightforward as that. It's like, no, I've come a long, long way, but there's maybe just this little bit that's still niggling. For you, either at the time or just in these last few years, what has that journey of forgiveness been like for you? Because it's really, I heard somebody say recently about how, you know, ask the question, how do you forgive what you can't forget? Because this isn't about being able to forget something that happened or to say it's okay.
Yeah, like every Christmas that comes, I know I'd be like, move that turkey away from me, because, you know what I mean? It's like that celebration is so significant. So the brain naturally will be like, this day last year, this is where you were.
Was that something that for you were just like, I can't be held up with unforgiveness? Or, because I think sometimes it is that. It's not always that you think, oh, this other person so deserves this. It's more that you go, well, especially as a follower of Christ, it's like, oh, I've got a forgiveness that's been extended to me. I somehow need to extend this to someone else, but it's just not super straightforward.
No, it's never straightforward. It's never straightforward for, in terms of like, we all go on the same journey, you know, with forgiveness. It's such a, we're all either introvert or extrovert, we're emotional, we're not, or some of us wear our heart on our sleeve, some of us are more guarded, or, you know, so for everybody it's different. I gave that person 7 years of my heart he wasn't getting any more from that day forward. There was no more. So I suppose there was a cut-off. And because he had made that decision for me, because he'd kind of gone, checked out, I'm out, I'm not here anymore, I was like, right, okay then. That there's no more need to invest in something that's not there. So my attention and focus and passion then turned towards my faith got so much stronger. I'm a totally different person, Rachel. Right. And that's, dare I say it, the joy of having gone through it is that it taught me so much about myself, about my faith, about my value, painful as it was, but I'm a totally different person.
How's that shaped your view of marriage now? Because you're a different person when you got married in around 2018, wasn't it? And now, has it even changed your view of marriage? Or would you want to go for it again? Would you, is it something that you're still like, okay, I'll take my time this time, or, we won't celebrate Christmas anymore? Like, what are your views now,
I mean, we talked about bitterness. I think bitterness would be continuing on the reminder. So, no, I'm all for Christmas. I am for Christmas in a big way. I don't let that hold me back, that one day, because it was one day. And I've had so many other Christmases that have been so wonderful. So he's not taken that away from me. I would love a marriage the way that the Lord had designed it to be. Because I don't think that was the deal I got. Probably in hindsight, from the very beginning. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. Because in the beginning, you don't see the signs. But no, it's still a goal. I still want the biblical marriage. I still want the give and take. I still want the pulling one another up. I still want the adventure and the story. God is really good to me. We go on adventures a lot. Like, I've done a lot of stuff and seen a lot of things, and I'm ready to do that with someone beside me who wants in.
Yes.
The boundaries are a lot clearer now. If there's even a hint of ghosting, it's not happening.
So it's actually made you realise what you would do differently. You're so much clearer, which I can just hear it in the way you speak and the way you tell the stories. You're so clear on where, okay, this wasn't right, but now I know going forward, what other things would you do differently, even in relationships, not just the marriage, but you talked about, even communication. What would you do differently? Or what do you bring into your relationships now? Yeah.
It's tough, isn't it? Like, I think with every relationship, it is different. I think that the first thing I would bring in is knowing my value, knowing who I am. I'm God's child. I deserve a certain level of respect. If you want to walk and travel with me, there's things that I've done and there's things that I bring to the table. You deserve the respect as well. You deserve the place to be here. We both deserve to be here at this table. So definitely the value. In terms of communication, I like to think I'm quite a good communicator, probably on the further end of the scale and oversharing, whatever's going on in my mind, and it quite often comes out. But then at least the other person knows, But then, you can set boundaries in place to go, right, okay, we won't go too far, or because your thoughts and feelings change.
Yeah.
But stand your ground on your feelings and stay convicted to what you're feeling at the time, if that's what you feel.
Yeah. I remember having a conversation years ago with a couple that I know, and they'd both previously been married, and they were talking about the pain of divorce, and it just struck me as you were sharing about out of everything you've been through, you'd be like, God, if you could take anything away, it would be that. And of course, that for you was, the choice was removed anyway, okay? But they were talking about how when I guess maybe we did this at school, you glue like 2 different coloured pieces of paper together. And if you tear them apart, the colour is still on each side of the paper. And that was their analogy of saying, both of them previously, it was actually the right thing for them to, sadly, to leave their partners or however it happened. But they were just saying, make no mistake, like there's not an easy way out. Like it's not the easy way out. Actually, it's so painful. And staying can be painful. Like I said, that was taken away from you. But then the pain of divorce, even if in the end, you've completely transformed and you can see actually that's helped transform you into a new person, that the pain can't be denied from that. And it just struck me. I don't know if there's a question attached to it, but I was just thinking about just the way you shared about how difficult that was, even though it had been really hard being in the marriage too. It's almost like there's not an easy way sometimes.
There's not a blueprint for separation.
No.
Every single person is different, and the transferring will be at different times. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's mental. Probably is more sort of mental for me because there was some, sort of emotional manipulation involved as well. So any hint of that sends me, taking a step back. But I do think you do recognise it. Like the sheets of paper, you can clearly see where there's been an imprint left. And I think we just need to be honest and real and say, look, that is my weak area. I will continue to work on it and give it to the Lord and work through and process. But that is a weak area. I think we are so scared of sharing. I struggle in this area. We see our lives modelled out on social media that everything's got to be perfect and beautiful. And those couples goals, that's wonderful, that's amazing. That is a snapshot of someone's life and someone's marriage, because when they got up in the morning, they did not look like that. It's being honest and open about, that's my weak spot, that's my weakness. Jacob walked with a limp after he'd wrestled with God. Paul had a thorn in his side that never left. Paul, who wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, who was like that with God. If those guys walked with those issues in their flesh, I kind of think the Lord is saying, I'm not removing that because you'll come to me when you feel, this feels a little bit uncomfortable. We'll go to the Lord and say, I need some help here because this is where I'm feeling triggered or anxious. This feels like the last time. And the Lord is our shepherd. He is our comfort. He is our guide. And he says we're to go to him.
Yeah, I think for me, like the best times I've had with God are when people have disappointed me the most. And I wish, I think now we have a good time most of the time, but it was in the challenges with people or rejection from people that I developed my faith so much. And I think a psychologist says that if in relationships we have our biggest heartbreak, it's also in relationships that will have the biggest healing. And you said the people around you were the ones that were there for you if you let them in and if you let them pick you up. But it's hard sometimes to let people in. And also, I think we move in such a fast-paced society that people don't slow down. We were saying, to look you in the eye and be like, are you okay? Sometimes also people don't know what to say. Because even as you were talking, I didn't even register that you got divorced. That's a word that sometimes people don't even know how to navigate. How did those people come around you and make you feel comfortable to lean on them and to let them into the healing and let you, because it's a level of opening up you have to do. How did you let them in and feel safe?
My mum and dad and my sister and I are very close. We're a very close family. So I'm very blessed in that respect. My dad had gone through a similar situation at the same age. So I felt when my husband abandoned me, I just did what I knew to do, which was go to the place of love, which was my family childhood home. So I did. And I thought, maybe I'll be there for like a little while. That turned into a lot longer, you know, than previously thought. My dad and I could sit in a room and he would just look at me, and I knew that my emotions were being reflected on his face because he had gone through it. My mum just loved on me, cuddled, cried, cooked. My sister would come in and do what we did as sisters. There was no difference.
Yeah.
We were still the same people. We finished each other's sentences. We told jokes. We sent each other silly videos and memes and things like that. So my family were my family as they had always been.
Yeah.
And so I had that safe space. And I think it's okay to always not show up as the divorced person.
Yeah.
To just show up as you, because they'll remember you for who you are without that relationship or that status. We are not our statuses. We are not our married titles or unmarried titles. At the end of the day, we're children of God. We belong to our family. You know, I was a daughter, I was a sister. And it's just allowing that to be the case. But then you can also pull someone aside and say, I'm really struggling today.
Yeah.
I would do that probably quite often with my sister, because my sister, as I said, we can finish each other's sentences, so I don't really need to tell her anything, and she just knows, which is wonderful. So it's okay to show up, you know, as the divorced person, but also just to shove that to one side and just be the silly, fun, loving person that you have always been.
And what would you say to people that are struggling to kind of pull that mask back and they want to go to someone and say, actually, today is not a good day, but they're so trying to keep up the appearances and, again, protect their relationship, protect their marriage, but there's something that they need to, you know, they need external help. How would you encourage somebody like that to open up or to be more honest about what they're going through?
Yeah. Not to be over spiritual, but I would say pray first. Pray and ask God, who do I go to about this?
Yeah.
And I do believe God will show you. Instinctively, you might know who that person is as well. You can also ask God for the timing. You know, people have got stuff going on. You know, people have got their family drama or, you know, whatever's happening in their life, and timing can be everything. I also have experienced quite a number of conversations where people kind of knew before I'd even said it, you know, that there was something going on or that they needed to speak. So I think it's allowing that other person as well to sort of, you know, read the room, you know, sense, you know, that there's something not right. And if that person says, if it's a brush off or they can't give you what they need right now, let them go away and process. 9 times out of 10, I'll say they'll probably come back and check in with you later. They might not have what you need right now. They also might process things differently. I think take the step, be brave and say, what you're going through. Yes, it's hard, but when you let the light shine in the darkness, you're allowing the healing to take place.
Yeah.
How, like in those moments, like you say, as people are either understanding what you were going through or you were telling them, I think one thing that can be quite difficult when you're in the centre of that story is seeing their response and reaction because they are horrified or they're sad or they're shocked and you're already sort of trying to move through it and you kind of, and it's just natural, isn't it? But you almost feel like then you carry their emotion too. Like how did you protect or safeguard yourself? And you must have been in many situations where you sat with someone and you needed to tell them this is what's happened, this is what I'm walking through, or somebody's asking you a question and you've got to say, actually, I just need to update you on some things. It can feel like you're almost like reliving the pain again. How did you just safeguard yourself in those conversations?
It's so funny you should ask that, because professionally, my husband and I have worked in the same industry. And just recently, someone said to me, oh, you know, and said his name. And I was in a space where there was other people in the room. And of course, my reaction is not one of, you know, being sort of professional and above board. So just recently, my stance on that was tested. But at the end of the day, it doesn't do any good for anybody to go, oh, well, they did this to me, and oh, it was awful, and wait till I tell you about this. It doesn't make me feel better. It actually doesn't even help the situation of the room that you're in at the time. It feels like it would be really validating or justified, but it wasn't. I knew it wouldn't be. It was just uber awkward. So I'm very good, Rachel, and that's just me because of my professional background, putting the mask on, Sinead, as you said. Like, the mask goes on, and you smile and you nod, and then you sort of go, right, I'll deal with that later. And the dealing with it later is usually a good cry, phone your mum, you know, like... But I've had it before. And I've sort of kind of learned to just shrug it off and say, it's a little bit like another notch in your belt. Sorry to say that, because let's not sugarcoat it. Stuff happens, you know, things come back. We're reminded of our past experiences, but actually the notch in the belt is, yeah, but I survived that conversation. I was able to just deal with it and move on. And, you know, wow, like, there must be other things that I can deal with and push through. It's that gut instinct. At the time when things, you know, were just awful and I was having to tell people, again, I was just carried by the family background of, like, people just being there at the end of the day. When I had had a conversation, I would go home, and the people that I loved were still the people that I loved, and they were there. And it's reminding yourself that there are consistent things in your life. Find those consistent things. One of the things that I'm doing right now, I've set myself a challenge of being 100 days thankful. So things are not consistent in my life right now. I don't know that they're consistent in anybody's life right now, but I've made a decision to be thankful for 100 days. So that's a level of consistency for me, in that we could have a new government in place. We could, my job situation could change. I've just moved location. So I needed a level of consistency. And that was one thing I put in place. So I would say to anyone, if they are going through something where they're having to reveal and be a bit more vulnerable, put that consistency in place. Do one thing each day that you'll do for yourself and that no one can take away and no one can touch, and it will be a consistent thing. Maybe it's praying, maybe it's messaging a friend. A therapist once said to me, why don't you text your friend your 3 thankfuls each day? Find a buddy and commit to that for a season. And I did. And I've done it with so many of my friends. I've picked them up on the way and said, will you do this with me? And they have loved it as much as I have. It's been what we've both needed. And that's the joy of life, isn't it? That actually you think you're doing something for you, but you're actually helping somebody else and you don't even know you're doing it.
You were saying, Ashley, you've transformed as a person through this process. And actually you've kind of left the old Ashley behind. You're sort of a new person. Do you feel that you had to grieve yourself and the old version of yourself through this process? Is that something you've experienced or not?
On reflection, I think there probably was a grief and a leaving behind of the person I was in the house where I was married. But when I moved location, there is a shift, but there was a shift that took place naturally And so that grief must have subsided over time. I think now more I celebrate who I am, my quirkiness, and what I bring to the table. I'm much more confident. I'm much more aware. And there's actually new skills that I have developed in myself even from that time. So I celebrate that. From that time, I've done a lot more writing. And that is something to be celebrated and championed because I don't think I would have had the space to develop that in the relationship that I was part of.
I was going to ask, would you have done that would you be writing now or doing those things now if you hadn't been through?
I wouldn't have had the confidence to do that in that relationship because I didn't think I had anything worthy to say.
I really find you someone that I would love to be around because you're not the kind of person that seems to hold on or, you know, like, look, you always, you said, you know, that I've been through this thing, but I've survived, like I'm going forward. And it sounds like you're so good at looking at things from like, we're going forward and moving on with this. And what do you tend to celebrate now? Because it seems you've made peace with what's happened and you're ready for the next thing. You know, what do you celebrate and what do you look forward to?
Oh gosh, where do I begin? Yesterday, I was sitting in the garden reading and a little squirrel just came running by. Today, as I came to the studios, the name of the studios is a word that the Lord had given me at the beginning of this year. I celebrate everything. Yeah. I celebrate sunshine because I'm from Scotland. I celebrate being in female conversations. I celebrate anyone who's watching this who is going through something. Not that I celebrate your hurt, but I celebrate that I can share and help in any way. I celebrate family. I celebrate love. I celebrate everything that God gives. A friend of mine, a friend of a friend, has been told that he has 12 months to live. And I cannot imagine what that would be like. I'd be booking holidays to the Caribbean. I would be trying every kind of flavour of ice cream. You know, if this is all we've got for this time, we get to graduate and go somewhere beyond, which is amazing. But if this is all we've got, then I want to try every flavour of ice cream. I want to go to every part of London. I want to go to every nation in the world because there's no dress rehearsal. This is it.
I mean, you talked about pouring your heart out to God, and it's very biblical, like David did that in the Psalms. It's not complaining, it's actually building that relationship. But then also celebrating daily is also what David did and we're supposed to be doing, is that just praising God constantly. And I don't know why do you think we've lost sometimes a sense of that? Is it because we're looking at comparing ourselves, we're focused on the wrong things? What keeps you thankful? What keeps you celebrating? Even when life can be a bit bleak, you know, what keeps you?
Don't get me wrong, Sinead, like if I've been up at 5 o'clock the last couple of mornings and, you know, as soon as the alarm goes off, I'm not celebrating. There is no celebration in that. As I'm scrolling on social media, I'm seeing a lot of anger, a lot of hurt, a lot of reposting of the news that might not even be true. A lot of getting involved in arguments. And I think if you put the phone down and you take a step back and you do something for you or you do something for a family member, I think that will change your perspective on the reality of the situation. It's not to bury your head in the sand. We need to stay in touch with what's going on in the world. I wholeheartedly get that, but we don't need to be living in the trauma of that day after day after day, scrolling on social media until the wee small hours of the morning. That doesn't do anybody any good. We can choose to celebrate. And I've had to choose. I've had to make the choice. I could choose to stay in the depression of what I've gone through, not just the divorce, but several other things. I could choose to be in the depression of like, my life is not what I want it to look like right now. I want to be married. I want to have kids. I look at, friends and family members who've got kids of their own, and I'm like, I really want one of them. But it's okay not to be there yet, and to pray into, Lord, please, can you just fast forward it a little bit? Like, can we skip to the good bit?
Yeah. And
so
obviously we're a community as well as the conversation. So we'd just love to know, is there anything you've got going on at the minute? Is there any projects you're working on? I know you're a writer, so are there any books that we should know about that we can support you in, follow you, buy the book, whatever it is?
Thanks, Rachel. I love that Magnify is a community. I love hearing different conversations from different people and hearing different faith journeys. And I wrote my first book from the back end of last year. It was released this year, and it's called A Day Away with God. It's about having those times in the garden with the squirrel. It's about having that self-care time with God and engaging with God in a different way outside of a church building, because God's not church. God is concerned about what's going on in your heart and what's going on for you. Because I've now caught the writing bug, I'm writing a second book called The Thing About Faith, which will be out later this year.
Amazing.
So
we can find it online, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
on Amazon.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley, just for your openness, how candid you are, but also, it's just so beautiful to see how you've walked a very difficult path, but just to see how God's met you and just the softness and kindness you have in this conversation as well is really beautiful. So thank you so much.
Thank you both for having me. Loved
so
it.
dynamic. Just, I'm blown away, to be honest. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for today's conversation. We hope you gleaned as much from it as we did.
You can join us to cultivate wisdom, be inspired, and gain knowledge on how to put your best foot forward in your career, money, and relationships, all grounded in faith as we grow together.
If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with all of our episodes at the Magnify Conversations.
If you have a story to share and would like to be featured on the conversations, get in touch with Team Magnify through magnifycollective.com and head to our contact form.
We'll see you soon for another installment. From all of our team and crew, have a great week.